Up everyone, welcome to another Friday Q&A. I apologize that this one is up so late. I was hanging out with my buddy and friend of the channel, Mr. Troy Nababan. Earlier in the day, we were just talking about gear and drinking coffee and doing all that kind of stuff. I got home and I got called to do a filling gig. So rather than film my usual Q&A, I went off and did a show and, did the thing, played a bunch of acoustic guitar and drank some really refreshing pineapple juice. And now I'm back here and I can get through all of your questions. Before I do though, shout out to everybody who has subscribed to the channel. It's crossed 50,000 subscribers, which is ridiculous. I'm gonna do a 50,000 subscriber special at some point over the next week. So let me know what you'd like to hear in that in the comments below. By the way, you all suggested so many great tones from the 70s. I'm gonna have an absolute field day when I finally knuckle down and do that video. I might do my 5 or my 10 favorite tones from the 70s and try to replicate them. And it all goes out to all of you who suggested so many great things. Alrighty, the first question is headphones. I use these. These are Audio-Technica. They kind of look weird at the moment. I grab these and put them on my head. Feels like every morning, and I log on and I do guitar lessons over Zoom. So these have been getting thrashed recently. I don't really do any serious mixing or anything or dialing in tones on them, but they are pretty handy and I don't mind the way they sound. And if you can get that happening with headphones, then you're onto a winner. They're relatively inexpensive as well. There's a big mosquito. It is summer here after all, which I know is a strange concept to a lot of people in the Northern Hemisphere, but of course, while the Northern Hemisphere is in winter, we've got summer down here, and this is one of my favorite things to do in summer. Engel amps from Germany. I have played a few Engels here and there. I remember when I was maybe 18 or 19 and I was really getting into kind of metal from Europe. It seemed like everybody was using Engel amps. Like I was listening to loads of Stradivarius and Symphony X and stuff like Pain of Salvation and things like that. And I don't know if any of those bands actually use Engels, but it feels like Engel was like the amp to have for a while there. And they also make some pretty cool tube preamps, so they've been on my radar, but I've never had one here in the studio to test out. So if you're in Perth and you got an Engel, hit me up because I would love to demo that thing. Where are we next on this? Do I have a gig with my Les Pauls? Basically, if I'm doing ragdoll stuff, I'm probably playing my PRS SC245 because that guitar is like the sound for that band. It's really comfortable to play. I've played and toured with it a bunch and it's pretty straightforward to set up. And that thing absolutely takes a pounding and stays in tune really, really well in drop C with 10 to 52s, which you probably wouldn't expect on paper, but it just does. If I'm doing other types of gigs, then every now and then I'll use a Les Paul. I haven't really been doing it a whole lot recently. It's kind of like the SC245 or the McCarty for the ragdoll stuff, and then I have a PRS Custom 24 that I use for just about everything else. That is insane because it can sound so thick and fat, but it can also do the kind of spanky, bright tones as well. Amazing guitars. If you have good gear, and you start with good gear, and you have good tones to start with, is that better in the long run than, I guess, the different situation of having really crummy gear and crummy tones? I think there is definitely a kernel of wisdom in the idea that it's like, if you just start with really good stuff, then you kind of don't have an excuse. It's like, I was really fortunate. My dad's a guitar player, so I could always borrow his guitars, and they're great guitars. And it was sort of like, I have this awesome Gibson in my hands and it doesn't sound great. And that's because it's me. So yeah, maybe really good instruments are just more transparent, or really good gear is kind of transparent and it's going to make you clear about what you do need to work on as opposed to what you maybe don't need to work on. Because someone who's been teaching guitar for ages, sometimes people come in and they're like, oh, I feel like I can never get a good sound, and they can actually play pretty well, but their guitars have this action that's like this high and they don't stay in tune. So there is, I think there's definitely some wisdom in get the best gear you can afford and, just practice. It really does come down to that, doesn't it? Alrighty, do I dial in? This is my new thing after 99 Q&As. I'm reading off the paper. If I use different guitars, do I dial in different presets on my Axe effects? Yeah, if I'm like dialing in a specific thing, like a kind of Ingve style preset, and I'm using my Ingve Strat, that guitar is so much mellower than all my other guitars that I really do have to set the amps and everything kind of different. I normally go with the same cab and the same kind of, time-based effects, but I will change the EQ and I'll change the gain to compensate for those kind of things. But at the same time, sometimes I like just changing guitars just to hear how they change the overall impact on a sound. And maybe I've got a sound that I've dialed in drop C with my PRS, but I grab my Strat and I play with it and it just inspires me to play different stuff. Or maybe, the best case scenario is it inspires you to write something. So yeah, I do both. This one comes from the one and only Mr. Robert Baker. Shout out to Robert. If you're not subscribed to his channel, go and do it because it's amazing, amazing stuff. The hardest shredders style from the 80s to copy. And I had a good think about this one, and one answer is all of them, right? Because they were all pretty fantastic. But when I was learning guitar, the video that really, really helped me the most was Paul Gilbert's Intense Rock. So the 3-note per string stuff. And practicing that a whole bunch was like, oh, if I can do the Paul Gilbert thing, then I can change a few things and I can kind of do the Ingve thing. And if I can kind of do the Ingve thing, I can change a few things and I can kind of do the Jason Becker thing, which is kind of adjacent to the Marty thing, but a totally different thing when Marty's in Cacophony than Megadeth. And then you got the Nuno thing, which is totally wild again. And then you have like Red Beach with his weird tapping technique. And that's definitely something that I cannot do to save my life. If someone was like, do the Red Beach thing, I'd be like, no, it's not going to happen. And I did listen to a whole bunch of like Whitesnake 1987 is probably my favorite album from that era. So like the whole Sykes thing is really deeply ingrained, but I can't do that 2-note per string, like mega pentatonic thing that he does. I cheat and I kind of change it and do a 3-note per string thing. I have a video about that, how not to play like John Sykes. You can check that one out. But I would probably have to say it's that Zakk Wylde, like berserker picking thing. The 2-note per string pentatonic stuff just eludes me. And I do heaps of work on it. And, the Troy Grady downward pick slanting thing has helped a lot. But yeah, Zach's just on a different level with it. Probably him and probably Eric Johnson, I think. To do the EJ thing well, I also have a video on how not to sound like Eric Johnson. So you can see the theme here. So yeah, that would probably be two. And then like Nuno's rhythm playing, because that man has the touch. So yeah, that would be for me, I think the styles that are like least adjacent to the way I play guitar, if that makes any sense. We can't turn the page just yet because I have a question. I put up that video yesterday of just the really crummy footage of Ragdoll doing a show at Indie Bar in Perth last weekend. So a few things about that. Yes, we're allowed to play shows inside in Western Australia because our government has had a pretty sane science-based approach to science-based approach to the whole pandemic thing, and there hasn't been any community transmission in Western Australia for, I want to say it's like over 6 months now. So we are literally the luckiest place in the world right now. We can go out and do gigs. It's relatively safe. It's calm. People are coming to the shows. So I'm crossing my eyes and my fingers and my toes that it all stays that way. And I didn't want to put that show up as a nah, we can do shows here, you can't. I just kind of wanted to share that because I know there's so many people out there who can't go to gigs and so many musicians I know who can't go and play gigs and make a living. So I just put that up because hopefully it provides a little ray of hope that, things can get better and hopefully they will get better and hopefully it will be really soon as well. On that note as well, I was playing my PRS straight into my FM3, straight into front of house. And if you don't believe me, when we finished the show, I took my GoPro off and this is what the sound guy said about why going direct is good.
Yeah, it's so nice not having a single amplifier on stage. The amount of clarity and like no phasing, so
Yeah, that's the thing.
normally you're always fighting the phase of an amp and like you can't quite line it up. But there's only one source and it's front of house. It's so easy.
I never thought of that. Am I into hi-fi gear? Sort of. I've got a semi-decent power amp and a record player and some pretty big speaker boxes that used to be my dad's that are from the 70s. He used to have an old Marantz system, which I always remember as a kid when he would like crank that up. It was like, that was the coolest thing to stand in front of that as a little kid. So I've got that, and I mean, to be honest, the time that I probably use that the most is if I'll like watch a movie with my wife, we'll run the TV audio into all of that and really crank it up. And it's also super awesome to play a game like Breath of the Wild on Switch through that big system. That the sound design in that is just amazing. I also remember when we got the Ragdoll Back to Zero album done on vinyl, playing it on that. I hadn't heard the mix that clear before. The way it was mastered for vinyl was so cool. By the way, link to that in the description if you go to our Bandcamp store and you want to get some Ragdoll music on splatter vinyl. It's a double album too, but we weren't talking about that. Getting cab-like punch out of something like the Atomic CLR when you're using a modeler, it's pretty good. It's not exactly the same as a cab. Like, it's never going to sound like a cab. I think you have to make peace with that if you want to go and, you know, use a full range system. But I will say I much prefer the sound of the CLR. It's a little bit more directional, a little bit kind of punchier and cab-like than just using like a PA speaker. I've never really got good results with that, you know, unless like you've got a really, really high-end monitor system or something like that. We've played a few venues where the monitors are just these ridiculous expensive things, and they do sound pretty good, and the CLR is kind of the closest I've ever got to that. And yeah, the couple of gigs that I did with it this year, running it through that was kind of reminded me that it's like, oh yeah, loud guitar music is fun. It's not good for your hearing, but it is fun. Your drummer trimmed his beard or shaved his beard off and ruined the look of the band. Yes, I agree. You know, leave a comment if you think Cam should grow his beard back. I think he looks really, really good with it. One of my favorite tones from 1999. There's a special one for the 99th Q&A. And, you know, I should look this up. What albums came out in 1999? I'm going to do this in real time. Rock albums. I'm guessing there was a Linkin Park album in there. Or maybe that one was 2000. So let's see, what do we got? Californication by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Sigur Rós. Ooh, that's kind of cool. Make Yourself, Incubus. That has some wicked sounds on it. That's like, still to me, like the Incubus album. Supernatural by Santana. I mean, come on, all the smooth memes. Still Life by Opeth. That's pretty cool. Clarity by Jimmy Eat World. Title of Record by Filter has some really nasty sounds that I like. This is just whatever's coming up. What do we got? We got Korn. We got Metallica, S&M. I still remember the first time I heard that as a kid. I was like, it's metal with an orchestra? You're allowed to do that? So yeah, this wow, lots of stuff came out in 1999. Metropolis Part 2 by Dream Theater. That was the second album I ever bought. Let's see, yeah, when did Hybrid Theory come out? Because that was like a very important album for me. I had a buddy who I used to skateboard with, and Hybrid Theory came out in 2000, so it doesn't count. But yeah, that I remember hearing that for the first time, and I was like, man, this is, you know, when you're like 13 or 14, and it's just the greatest thing in the world, listening to nu metal. And I still spin that every now and then. I think it still stacks up. Really, really good album. So yeah, there are a few selections from there that Google told me about. I probably should have prepared for that question a little bit better. Apologies. What gear do I play through the most? Definitely my Axe FX3, which is mounted on my desk, and it is either my PRS SC245 or it is my Fender 1977 Strat, because they're the two guitars kind of easiest and closest to grab. And the Axe FX does everything. Have I seen the Aussie TV show Upright? I haven't, but I know it's got Tim Minchin in it. And if you want to, if you want to have a good chuckle, go and check out some of Tim Minchin's solo music. I would recommend starting with the song Storm, because yeah, Tim's very much a one-of-a-kind performer. And yeah, you know, you'll either think it's the greatest thing you've ever heard, or you might not like it too much. All right, let's finish this off with, what does it cost to make a music video? So this is based on someone seeing the Rewind Your Mind music video. That one, from memory, probably, before I tell you about the cost, anyway, I'll tell you what we did. So we did a video for All I Want with a local guy called Aaron Moss who was fantastic. That's still my favorite ragdoll music video, and he just like blew our minds with that. We showed up to shoot our part of it, and it was, you know, pretty cool location, and there were people running around with all these cameras and stuff like that. It felt very like professional. And then they filmed a bunch of extra stuff, and when we got the cut of it, it was like, oh my god, this looks so good. We feel like a proper band now that we've got this music video. So that was really cool. And then we got Aaron again to do Rewind Your Mind, and that one was interesting in that they also wanted to make a short film to go with, and the short film has like never seen the light of day. But I remember it was like a 3-day shoot, and then we did our part at a studio, which took like 2 hours. Our part was the easy part. And my wife actually worked on that music video doing a bunch of the makeup as well. And the lead guy in the music video is now the bass player in a band from Perth called Hail Mary, who we played with last week. So if you want to hear some great rock music from Perth, Western Australia, go and check out the Hail Mary stuff. You'll probably really like it if you like listening to Ragdoll, or you like what I do on this channel. They've got some really great songs. So yeah, he's now in a band that we played with, which is kind of cool. But from memory, that one, I think we paid like around 3,500 Australian dollars, so probably around the 2,500 American dollar mark. But I think for what we got a great deal, because Aaron's amazing at what he does, and that was like, you know, sound recorders. I think we called in a lot of favors with that one. Basically, like, it was done totally legit. So yeah, and I think the All I Want one was a similar amount as well. And yeah, so that's kind of, I guess that would probably be entry level if you want a decent music, kind of cinematic music video. Of course, you could just spend that money on cameras if somebody in the band kind of knows what they're doing, and just film a bunch of gigs and edit all that kind of stuff to do, which is kind of what I do now. My buddy GT Singh, you should go and subscribe to his channel as well. He actually, I don't know how he did this, but he said to me, hey, can I cut together and edit a music video for you guys? So I gave him like the least organized set of just tour footage, and he made a music video for our song Rust. And I thought that one was really, really cool as well. I have no idea how he did it, because we don't play to a click live, and everything's synced up to the song. So there's some magic going on there. And yeah, again, on the whole like process of making a music video, you know, you get a PA and you play your song really, really, really loud, and then you mime to it for like 6 hours while headbanging and giving yourself whiplash. That was kind of my experience anyway. So yeah, definitely a bigger physical cost than a financial cost, I think. Anyway, that is Q&A 99. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Big shout out to my buddy Ed at Boss Australia as well for giving me this shirt. It's one of my favorite shirts ever, and I don't know if Boss sell these, but they probably should, because I know everyone would buy one. So especially the Metal Zone ones. Anyway, stay safe, be excellent to one another. I'll see you all next time for Q&A 100. Get your questions in. We'll make it a massive one, and I'll answer anything you like. See you then.